Hey guys, welcome to the channel and welcome back to the Nerd Cave. Sorry for that, chugging my monster on camera. I just got back from walking our Great Dane, and my wife and I took her for a walk. She requires a daily walk because she's very high energy, and it's warming up around here. It's like 70 some degrees, and we're not used to that yet. It's like it's transitioning from winter boom to summer. Like, we're not getting a whole lot of in between with this spring business. We're not getting a whole lot of in between. We wake up in the morning, it's like 40 some degrees, and then boom, afternoon, it's pushing 80. And I'm a little sweaty. I'm a little out of sorts. I don't know if you can tell on camera, but I'm sweaty, and I don't like to be sweaty. And all this hair, whew, it's rough. You just gotta get it off the neck, and oh man, it's unbelievable how much that will cool you off. Yet this has got to happen, guys. I'm telling you, I like the look of my hair down. I like that look a lot. Otherwise I wouldn't have long hair. But summertime, that look gets pushed to the wayside because you can't have all that hair draping over your shoulders, and especially when it's sticky warm. And I do got my window cracked open a little bit, so you might hear some outside noise, and if you do, I apologize. And I've changed mics. We're gonna see how this works. Anyway, a lot of things could go wrong in this episode in the Nerd Cave. Okay, so today's video is going to be about I'm going to address a question I was asked, and this question has been asked to me a lot. I'm talking even since I was a young kid, and I've never really answered the question. And don't get me wrong, when people ask me questions, I do answer them via text messaging and stuff. But I'm not one of these YouTubers that tweet out, hey, I'm doing a Q&A, and then get flooded with loads of questions. For one, I'm not that big of a YouTuber to tweet something out and get flooded with a load of questions. And for two, I probably wouldn't do that anyway. If someone asks me a question, I will address them personally. But when someone asks me a question over and over and over again, multiple people asking the same question, I feel like it deserves its own video. I feel like I should address it right here on the channel and talk about it a little bit. And this particular question is something that, hey, something that I don't mind talking about. Like I said, I've been asked this question for years, and the question was, well, one particular viewer asked me this question. That they're the ones that made me want to do this video. But like I said, I've been asked this question multiple times by multiple people throughout my life, and this question is, why do I love comic books? And man, it goes kind of deep, actually, and there's multiple reasons why I love comic books, and so that's why this question deserves its own video, because there's a lot to address here. Starting out, I've been collecting comic books. I've been into superheroes and comic books almost as far back as I can remember, in some form or another. I didn't actually start really becoming a comic book collector until I became an adult. Many years ago, I worked with a friend, and we worked out in a farm, in a barn, and we repaired tarps, like vinyl tarps that cover loads on semi-trucks. A friend of mine, his name was Jason. He's been a friend of mine since grade school. I still consider him a friend. We don't get the opportunity to talk much these days. I've seen him occasionally, but I still consider him a friend, pretty much a friend. But we shared the same interest in art. We were both artistic. We both liked to draw, and we both liked just art, just art in general. But he was into comic books, and and I always was into comic books, and I had comic books from when I was a little kid. But there was a period in there where, I had gotten married. I was a teenager. I had gotten married. Things like that. And he started showing me some, I think it was a Spawn comic book or a Max comic book or something like that. And he was like, look at the artwork in this. I started looking at the artwork, and then I was like, I was just blown away by the artwork. I was blown away by the story. I started reading these comic books. I'm going to close this window. It's just far too noisy outside. School's getting out. School bus is going by. But anyway, so I read the comic book that he brought there. I ended up going to the local supermarket and buying a few more comic books. He and I ended up going to the next town over to a comic book store and buying more comic books. And then it just progressed from there. And my passion and love for the artwork and for the storyline and for the characters and for all the creative aspect that went into even the writing, naturally the artwork and the coloring and how it's laid out and how it's put together, storylines and stories and storylines that come from other storylines that mesh in with this storyline, and it was blowing my mind. It was like I read a Spawn comic book where Batman and Spawn met up, and so it was Image Comics and DC Comics, and they came together into a storyline, and that storyline still carries on through the Spawn comic books today. That he still has the scar in his face from the Batarang in the comics today. And so all that and these storylines, like in Marvel, all these storylines mesh together. It's a Marvel universe, and they're all acquainted, and their storylines mesh together. It boggles my mind, and the creative minds behind these comic books are incredible. And when I started reading these comic books, I would get lost. In it, I would get lost. You know how when you're watching a really good movie and you really get so deep into the movie that you're almost there? Maybe I doubt I'm the only one that does that. But, you know, you're almost in the movie. You feel so emotionally involved. You know what I mean? I get that way with comic books. And when I read them, I really dive into those pages and I escape. Now, these days, I don't have a lot to escape from. I've got a fantastic marriage, amazing kids. My life is good. I'm happy. But to still escape from the real world into this artistic, creative, superhero-filled, superhuman world is amazing to me. To escape into those pages, I probably find a little bit of therapy there. And I like to pretend that world of being superhuman, could possibly exist. Now I know it couldn't. Well, there probably are some people a little bit superhuman than others, but I know that's not a reality. But to imagine that if it was, or if you could be someone with, superhuman abilities. The thought of that, I love playing with the thought of that in my head. I'm a very creative person. I have a huge imagination. I come up with stories all the time, and so naturally this is something that I would find very interesting. Another thing about the comic book world, and one of the reasons why I love comic books, is because it's good versus evil, and good normally prevails. When you get into say like Spider-Man, for instance. Spider-Man's a young teenage boy. He acquired superpowers by getting bit by a radioactive spider. Before that, he was a nerd. He was bullied, and that story really speaks to me. When I was in school, I'm 6 foot. I'm 6'5", 225 pounds. I'm not a small guy, but when I was in school, I was tall and I was skinny and I was lanky and I was awkward and I was socially awkward and I wasn't very good around people, and I didn't know how to carry on conversations, or how to use small talk. I was a very social misfit. And I was bullied. I was taken from my school, my public school, and put into a private school, and it was no holds barred there. The rules didn't apply that would apply in public school, and there were some people there that were really, really rotten to me, really bullied me. I've still got a school picture from that school where I got beat up before as we was heading to get the school pictures taken, and I have a swollen jaw and a black eye in my picture. I was bullied. And so the story of Spider-Man being someone who well, because I'll tell you now, nobody's gonna bully me. I will guarantee that. Just saying. So, but the story with Spider-Man, Peter Parker, being just an awkward, socially awkward type of guy, kind of picked on. He becomes Spider-Man, and nobody picks on him anymore. Nobody's picking on Spider-Man. That's a story that really that I can associate with, that I can connect with, being bullied and then getting past that, and having a story to tell, because bullying sucks. To be a bully or to be bullied sucks. And there was a time in my life, believe it or not, even though I was bullied at younger years, that I became a bully. I became the person that I hated. I became the guy that I despised, and I have since forgiven myself for that, and I hope the people that I bullied have as well, because I'm not that person. But anyway, so that's why I like comic books. There's stories. The stories of Peter Parker being a very socially awkward person, and then becoming Spider-Man, and becoming comfortable with who he is, and going through a lot of trials and troubles and tribulations and things and stuff that really made life hard on him, and still prevailing, and still going from this very socially awkward person to a person who is not socially awkward, someone who gains some self-esteem and starts to care about themselves. That is really in that story, with Spider-Man. But it is good versus evil. It is good always prevails most times, and it's the artistic art and storylines and the creative ideas behind this, and there's some really creative geniuses behind Marvel and DC and Image Comics, and these guys, anybody who can put together a storyline like that and keep it going for years, there's definitely something superhuman in someone who can do that, who can keep. I mean, let's take Stan Lee, for example. This guy's a legend to me. Stan Lee. I've got a signed Stan Lee picture over here. I've got Stan Lee cards over here. I subscribe to the Stan Lee box. I have a Stan Lee Dorbs figure over there. I'm a huge Stan Lee fan. Stan Lee's like 90-some years old, and still looks. I mean, the guy looks fantastic, and is still in his right mind, and still doing amazing. He is superhuman to me in the sense of what he's done for comic books, and what he's done with Marvel, and what he's created as far as characters within the Marvel universe. And I find that guys like him are somewhat superhuman, to keep some of the things that he has been doing for the last 50, 60, 70, 75 plus years going like he has with say the Incredible Hulk, or Superman, or not Super, oh dear God, that's DC, sorry, the Incredible Hulk, or Spider-Man, or a lot of the characters that he's created. Yeah, that's impressive to me. I love a creative mind. I love because to me, creative minds, people with a creative mind, people who are constantly churning things in their brain and constantly creating things in their mind, are very intelligent people. I feel that a creative person is a very intelligent person, and I love a creative mind, and I love to just sit and talk to creatives and people who have ideas and want to share them. And if you think about it, the superhero world, the comic book world, is a subculture of it's a geek culture of people who gather at Comic-Cons, for crying out loud. Do you realize how big a Comic-Con is? I went to Chicago Comic-Con last year. I will be going to Chicago Comic-Con at the end of summer this year, and they're huge. There's people of all like-minded people, the people who have a love and a passion for this kind of stuff, and you know, share the same interest. Hundreds of thousands, at least thousands, maybe not hundreds of thousands. We're talking thousands and thousands of people gather together in a place that goes for 4 days, maybe more, and you know, some of these people, you know, they do their cosplay and they create their own costumes, or they buy their costumes, but either way they're trying to portray their favorite character, and there's a lot of work that goes into that, and it's very interesting. And then the people that are there to meet their favorite comic book artist or favorite comic book illustrator or favorite movie star or what have you. Most of these people are drawn to this place because they fell in love with comic books. And they fell in love with superheroes, and they fell in love with the storyline, and they fell in love with good over evil, and they fell in love with, just because they're socially awkward, just because they didn't fit in, they do now. Definitely fit in now. This is a subculture. This is a geek culture. This is a culture of people that went from being socially awkward to having thousands of people gather together at one place every year in multiple places, and you know, can share ideas and share you know, the same interests, and they're not social outcasts anymore. They're totally socially accepted in that setting, and that's pretty cool to me. So that's what comic books is to me. It was a way for me to find an escape from not necessarily the real world, but just a place to escape to, just a fun place to just let my mind wander, and to put myself into some of them scenarios, and to imagine a world where that kind of superhuman powers could exist, and then it goes into you know, finding myself and accepting myself through the stories in these books, and becoming, you know, happy with who I am, and becoming a person that you're not going to mess with anymore. I'm not a violent person. I'm not saying that. I'm not a person that that wants to hurt someone. I've become accepting of who I am, and am I still socially awkward sometimes? You know, but another thing that's helped me with that is making videos. But anyway, I know this video's kind of been here and there and all over, and my mind's reeling, and I'm trying to explain this to you guys the best that I can, and I'm trying to make sense and answer a question of why I love comic books. And it boils down to art, story, just the creative aspect in a comic book, an escape, a place to escape to, and to relate to, and what it's become. I mean, it literally draws people together, and I mean, people probably build friendships based on this stuff. And I know this could go with anything. It could go with video games. It could go with, which kind of falls into geek culture anyway. I mean, it could go with, you know, Harry Potter. I mean, for example, that's pretty huge. And there's people that gather together because of that, and gather together to watch the movies and dress up when they go to see the new movie that came out and the new book released. And I mean, I know it can go with anything, but for me, people ask me, man, why do you have thousands of comic books in your nerd cave? You know, why do you get so excited to go to the comic book store? Why do you, you know, your eyes glaze over when you're looking at a certain comic book, or when you're looking for a certain comic book and you find it? Why do you love this so much? We can tell. We can see your excitement when it comes to the new superhero movie coming out, when it comes to collecting the action figures, or, you know, why do you like this stuff so much? And there's not just one simple answer. I like it for a lot of reasons, but it has been part of who I am today. It has totally played a part in who I am today, and why I've become who I've become, and why I'm a more confident person. It absolutely has a lot if not everything, to do with that. And 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 I love comic books, and they literally have have made me, and this may sound cheesy, a better person. They've made me a better me. They've helped me gain the confidence to be a better me, and that's no lie. So, you see a kid with a comic book in his pocket. Well, I mean, if he's a comic book geek, he's not going to roll it up and stick it in his pocket. He's going to stick it in between his notebook and carry it home so nothing happens to it. But it goes with anything, guys. Don't treat someone bad because they're different. Those people grow up to be amazing people, most likely. Don't treat someone bad because they're socially awkward or they just don't fit in quite right. Those people really want to fit in. They want to be accepted. They want to be part of a group, but it's just not who they are. I was never part of a group. There was the sports kids, and they all gathered together before class, and I gathered with me. I did have friends in school. I'm not saying I didn't, but I think those friends were just nice to me because I had no one else being nice to me, which I totally appreciate. And I'll never forget that. But man, don't bully people. I was bullied, and I was a bully, and both sides of that spectrum suck. Probably being bullied sucks worse, but being that bully, that person, that doesn't feel good, and that person doing the bullying, there's really something going on there that's kind of sad. And I know when I bullied someone, it was simply because I didn't want them to get to me first. I didn't want to be bullied again. I was scared to death of being bullied again, so I became the bully. And I literally became a person I despised, and I lost a lot of self-esteem and self-respect because I became that person. And it's not fair to yourself, and it's not fair to anybody around you, anybody watching you be that person, and it's definitely not fair to the person who's being bullied, because nobody deserves that ever. Ever. Nobody ever deserves to be treated different because they're different. It's just not fair. So take it from the bully and the bullied. It's never a good place to be, ever. And if you see that kid who is just into the superheroes, into the comic books, man, be his friend, because one day he may be the guy who's writing your favorite comic book or playing a part, a cameo in your favorite superhero movie. You just never know. Someone with a creative mind like that, and someone who's able to open their mind to comics and things like that and be a creative person, they're, like I said, they're very smart people. And most likely they're going to continue in this life and become something very incredible. I have no doubts with that. So, there you have it, guys. I know they got a little deep in the way of a video, and it kind of got a little deep into a little bit of my history, my origin, so to speak. The origin of Steve. That's a terrible superhero name, but I don't know what I would be if I were a superhero. I mean, actually, I do. I'd be a combination of a few different superheroes, but we'll talk about that some other time. Anyway, guys, I thank you so much for coming to the Steve Tooley channel. I thank you so much for listening to this simple ramble about why I love comic books. I hope the microphone's working well. I find myself getting back here sometimes, and I come back up here and talk. So, anyway, guys. Thank you for coming to the Steve Tooley channel. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Let's Talk. And I will see you guys Monday in the weekend vlog. Bye. These make me a better person, too. Not really.